1. Let me tell you about this absolutely rad 1985 Dodge Ram Charger I just came across on Craigslist. This is one of those classic SUVs that just oozes character, and at $11,900, it's worth checking out. What we've got here is a clean white Ram Charger with the legendary 360 V8 under the hood. And get this, it's been freshly rebuilt with 340X heads. That's some serious muscle right there. The fact that it's paired with a manual transmission and 4x4 capability makes this thing a proper enthusiast's dream. The seller's been taking good care of this beast. We're looking at a bunch of new parts, including the carburetor, alternator, battery, and fuel pump. With 99,000 miles on the clock, that's actually pretty reasonable for a 38-year-old vehicle. The recent tune-up and good tires mean it's ready to hit the road, or trails right away. What really catches my attention is that everything is reported to work properly. No issues, which is pretty rare for a vehicle of this age. The clean title and excellent condition suggest this Ram Charger has been well maintained throughout its life. For those who don't know, the Ram Charger was Dodge's answer to the Bronco and Blazer, and these things are getting harder to find, especially in this condition with a manual transmission. The combination of the fresh 360 motor, manual gearbox, and 4x4 capability makes this a seriously cool piece of American automotive history. 2. Let's talk about this 1979 Ford Bronco I found listed for $14,000. I've got to be straight with you. There's some important stuff to consider here. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. The odometer has rolled over, so those 85,000 miles shown aren't telling the whole story. We're likely looking at 185,000 plus miles here, which is pretty typical for these old Broncos. But here's what makes this interesting. It's got some serious off-road upgrades that'll catch any enthusiast's eye. Those 37-inch Toyo MT tires with 75% tread left are no joke, and they're not cheap. The solid front axle setup is what many Bronco fans dream of, and that 9,500 pounds winch with the custom front bumper shows this rig was built for business. The seller mentions it runs great and has lots of new engine parts, which is promising. But as always with vehicles this age, you'll want to inspect those new parts carefully. The rear spool, which means no differential, both wheels turn at the same speed, tells us this Bronco's been built more for off-road use than daily driving. Being a 79 with the V8, likely the 351, these are becoming increasingly collectible. The blue paint appears decent in a rugged sort of way, and the clean title is definitely a plus. 3. Let's talk about this 1985 Chevy C10. I found on Craigslist for $12,000. I've got to be completely honest with you about this one. There's some interesting stuff to unpack here. First, let's address the elephant in the room. 430,000 miles. That's not a typo, folks. That's some serious mileage that tells a story of a truck that's definitely lived a full life. While high mileage isn't always a deal breaker on these old Chevys, they're known to be pretty bulletproof. It's definitely something to consider in the price negotiation. The seller claims it's beautiful inside and out, with no rot and no mechanical issues, which, if true, is pretty remarkable for a truck this age with this many miles. It's powered by the 305 V8, which isn't the most powerful engine Chevy offered, but it's known for being reliable and easy to work on. One nice bonus is that color-matched fiberglass canopy. Those aren't cheap, and if it's in good condition, it adds real value to the package. The seller mentions it gets lots of attention, which usually means it's been well maintained aesthetically. These square-body C10s have become incredibly popular in recent years, with prices climbing steadily. However, at $12,000 with 430K miles, you'll want to inspect this one thoroughly. The 305 automatic combination is pretty much bulletproof when maintained, but that's a lot of miles even for a Chevy. 4. Let's talk about this 1980 GMC C10 short bed that's up for grabs at $9,000. I've got to keep it real with you about what we're looking at here. This is definitely a project truck, and the seller's being upfront about it. We're looking at a C10 with a 383-stroker motor, which is a pretty sweet upgrade from the stock engine, paired with an automatic transmission. The seller mentions it runs and drives well, which is always a good start. Now let's address some red flags. The odometer's broken, so we're in the dark about the actual mileage. The gauges need to be hooked up, and the interior needs work, so you'll need to factor in some time and money to get everything sorted out properly. On the bright side, the seller claims it's got a straight body with no rust, which is huge for these old square bodies. The paint is described as older, so don't expect show car quality here. But hey, solid and straight is what matters most with these trucks. For those who might be interested, the seller's offering a set of 20-inch wheels for an extra $1,000. But remember, this truck needs some attention to the basics first. At $9,000, you're buying a running and driving project with good bones. These C10s are super popular right now, and that 383 stroker is a nice bonus. However, you'll need to be handy with tools or have some extra budget for getting those gauges and interior sorted out. 5. Let me tell you about this sweet 1965 Chevy C10 short bed I just found listed for $23,500. This is one of those builds that catches your attention, so let's break it down honestly. We're looking at a nicely modernized classic here with some really thoughtful upgrades. The truck's running a fresh 350 V8 paired with a 700 R4 transmission. That's a fantastic combo, because you get the classic Chevy power plus an overdrive gear for comfortable highway cruising. Smart choice. The sellers put in some serious work on the suspension and drivability. Power steering, power brakes with front discs, C-notched rear frame, and drop spindles with new CPP springs and shocks. Translation? This truck will ride and handle way better than it did in '65. The 5-lug conversion is also a huge plus, opening up your wheel options significantly. Interior-wise, you're getting new seats and carpet, which is always nice in an old truck. The seller's being upfront about the condition. There's some rust in the lower right fender and door skin, but they mention solid floors and rockers, which is crucial on these trucks. The patina look is super popular right now, and this truck wears it well. It's that perfect mix of classic looks with modern reliability and comfort upgrades. At $23,500, we're in the middle of the market for these trucks. Given all the mechanical upgrades, new parts, and the overall condition, it's not unreasonable, especially considering how C10 prices have been climbing. Just make sure to inspect that rust situation carefully, as small rust spots can sometimes hide bigger issues. 6. Let me tell you about this interesting 1964 Ford Ranchero I found for $4,700. I really appreciate the seller's honesty here, so let's break this down authentically. This is a field rescue Ranchero with the original 170 straight-six and 3-speed column shift. The seller's completely upfront about its condition. It's a survivor, not a show car. The engine burns some oil and needs carb tuning, but hey, it runs. The odometer shows 29,000 but has rolled over, so actual mileage is unknown. Let's talk about the rough stuff first. There's rust in the typical Ranchero trouble spots. The floor has some funky repairs, seller's words, and the roof corners need attention. There's no headliner or dome light, and it's running straight pipes with no muffler. The car's got some cool custom touches too. It's lowered 3 inches, has a relocated gas filler, and rocks a modified 65 Falcon grille. Plus, you get an extra set of 14 inches wheels and spare doors with the deal. At $4,700, you're getting an honest, running piece of American automotive history that needs some TLC, but isn't a total basket case. The seller's vision of this being a great starter classic for a young enthusiast is spot on. It's affordable, mechanically sorted enough to drive, and leaves plenty of room for learning and improvement. 7. Let's talk about this 1971 GMC pickup that's caught my attention at $29,995. I've got to be honest, there's something interesting but also a bit concerning here. First thing that jumps out is the VIN format looks unusual with those zeros, and the extremely low 11,685-mile reading needs to be verified. These details warrant some careful investigation. At this price point, you really want to be sure about what you're getting. The listing is surprisingly sparse on details for a truck commanding nearly $30K. We're not getting any information about the engine, transmission specifics, or restoration history, which is crucial information at this price point. Usually, when someone's asking top dollar for a classic truck, they're eager to share all the details about what makes it special. These early 70s GMC pickups are absolutely beautiful machines when done right, and they've been climbing in value. The clean title is a plus, but at $29,995, you'd expect a fully restored example, or at least one with significant upgrades and documented history. For perspective, this price point could get you a very nicely restored C10 from this era with modern upgrades, documented history, and all the paperwork to back it up. 8. We're checking out this absolutely fantastic 1974 Ford F-250 Ranger XLT Highboy that I found on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this is one clean example of classic American muscle. For $18,000, you're looking at a genuine two-owner highboy with the desirable 360 V8 paired to a 4-speed manual transmission. The odometer shows 113,666 miles. But don't let that scare you. These trucks were built to last. What really catches my eye is that this is wearing its original paint and has never been in any accidents. That's increasingly rare for a truck of this age. The seller has clearly taken good care of this beast. They've recently installed a new starter, carburetor, brakes with booster, and master cylinder. It's got some cool additions too. A CB radio and a Warn winch, which are perfect for this 4x4 setup. Speaking of 4x4, the seller mentions it's working properly, which is crucial for a highboy. The interior is described as being in excellent condition, which is remarkable for a nearly 50-year-old truck. These F-250 highboys are getting harder to find, especially in this kind of condition. The seller mentions it runs and drives fantastically with a powerful motor, and given the detailed description and maintenance history, I'm inclined to believe them. For anyone who doesn't know, the highboy term refers to these pre-1977 F-254x4S that sat higher from the factory due to their unique suspension setup. At $18,000, considering the current classic truck market and the condition described, this seems like a fair ask for such a well-preserved piece of Ford truck history. 9. We're looking at a really interesting find on Craigslist, a 1976 Ford Ranchero Squire that's caught my attention. Let me tell you why this car-truck hybrid is special. This Ranchero is listed at $19,500, and what's really intriguing is the incredibly low mileage, just 3,418 miles showing on the odometer. It's wearing a red exterior paired with a black interior, and according to the seller, it's in like-new condition. Under the hood, you'll find the 6.6 LV8. That's the 400 cubic inch for you old-school folks, paired with an automatic transmission. What's particularly impressive about this example is that it's rust-free, a rare find for a 76 model. The seller mentions it has ice-cold AC, which is a huge plus for these classics, and a premium sound system. It's the Squire model, which was the more luxurious trim level, featuring the signature wood grain paneling on the sides that was so iconic of that era. The Ranchero is really a unique vehicle. It's got the comfort of a car with the utility of a pickup, and this 500 Sport Coupe version was one of the more desirable configurations. With rear-wheel drive and that big V8, these vehicles offered a great balance of utility and cruising comfort. The seller states it runs and drives fabulous, and they're offering a warranty, which is pretty unusual for a classic vehicle of this age. They also mention they handle nationwide shipping, which could be convenient for out-of-state buyers. 10. We're checking out this sweet 1965 Ford Ranchero that just popped up on Craigslist for $18,000, and let me tell you, this one's got some interesting features. This red beauty has clearly received some love with a recent restoration, and what makes it particularly interesting is the rebuilt inline-six engine with less than 2,000 miles on it. Now, while some might expect a V8 in these, the straight-six actually gives this Ranchero a unique character, and when paired with the 5-speed manual transmission, which is definitely an upgrade from original, it should make for a really enjoyable driving experience. The seller's done some smart safety upgrades too. They've added front disc brakes and a dual master cylinder, which significantly improves the stopping power compared to the original drum brake setup. The AC addition is a huge plus, as these weren't commonly equipped with air conditioning from the factory. With 99,000 miles on the odometer, this Ranchero has lived a life, but the recent rebuild means the engine's basically starting fresh. The new paint job gives it a fresh look, and the seller mentions it's in very nice condition, which is backed up by the photos. At $18,000 OBO, considering the recent rebuild, upgrades, and overall condition, it's in the ballpark for a well-maintained 65 Ranchero in today's market. The must-sell note suggests there might be some room for negotiation too. 11. We're looking at a rather interesting project vehicle on Craigslist, a 1985 Chevy Suburban that's, well, let's be completely honest here. It's basically a shell waiting for your creativity and mechanical skills. Listed at $3,000, this white Suburban comes with some good news and some challenging news. Let's start with the elephant in the room. It has no engine or transmission. Yes, you heard that right. It's currently a very large paperweight that needs to be towed away. The seller is upfront about this, which I appreciate. On the positive side, it's got relatively low miles showing at 64,166, though that's probably from its last working engine. It's the desirable 4x4 version, and it's already lifted, which could save you some money if you're planning a build. The clean title is definitely a plus too. No title headaches to deal with here. The seller describes the condition as fair, which is probably generous considering it's missing its major mechanical components. But these square-body Suburbans are becoming increasingly popular, and they make excellent project vehicles due to their simple design and massive aftermarket support. Is $3,000 a fair price? Well, that really depends on your plans. If you've got an engine and transmission ready to go, or if you're planning a custom build, this could be a decent starting point. These old Suburbans are getting harder to find, especially 4x4 models with clean titles. 12. We're checking out an interesting 1974 Chevy C10 on Craigslist that's got a bit of a twist to it. Let me break this one down for you. Listed at $5,500, this C10 has undergone a pretty significant modification. It's been converted from a long bed to a short bed using a PB Fab conversion kit. Now, if you're not familiar with these conversions, they're pretty popular in the truck community because short beds typically look sportier and are more desirable among collectors. Under the hood, you're getting the original 350 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, and with 88,000 miles on the clock, it's got some life experience but isn't worn out. The seller mentions it runs and drives, which is always good to hear. But here's the interesting part. It's currently ready for you to add any short bed you want. So basically, you're getting a running and driving chassis with the conversion already done. The seller lists the condition as good, and it comes with a clean title, which is important for these older trucks. At $5,500 OBO, you need to factor in that you'll still need to source and install a short bed to complete the truck. However, considering current C10 prices and the fact that the conversion kit is already installed, these kits aren't cheap. It could be a decent starting point for someone looking to build their ideal short bed C10. These 73, 87 Chevy trucks, often called square bodies, have a huge following and great aftermarket support. If you're handy with tools and have a vision for what you want, this could be an interesting project. 13. We're looking at an absolutely stunning 1979 GMC C1500 that's popped up on Craigslist, and this isn't your average square body. This is a seriously built custom truck. Listed at $28,500 firm, this GMC is rocking a beautiful orange and silver custom paint job, and the attention to detail is impressive. Under the hood, you've got the classic 350 Ci V8 paired with a 700 R4 automatic transmission, a great combination that offers both performance and highway cruising capability. The 12-bolt rear end with posi traction is a desirable feature that helps put the power down reliably. What really sets this truck apart is the full air ride setup with a 9-switch system and digital gauges. For those not familiar, this means you can adjust the ride height at the touch of a button, perfect for shows or daily driving. The 20-inch American Racing staggered wheels really complement the stance when it's laid out. The modernization continues with power steering and power-assisted front disc brakes for safety. The interior features a brown cloth bench seat, and they've added some nice modern touches like a Kenwood touchscreen head unit, aftermarket speakers, and Rockford Fosgate subwoofers for those who love their music. The tilt steering column adds some extra comfort for the driver. With only 1,979 miles showing, likely since the build, and a clean California title with no back fees, this is a turnkey custom that's ready to hit the shows or cruise the streets. The Flowmaster exhaust system probably gives this truck a perfect muscle car sound too. 14. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1982 Dodge W150 that's caught my attention. And let me tell you why this old school 4x4 is worth talking about. Listed at $6,800, this W150 is showing 79,000 original miles and comes with some solid credentials. It's a 3-owner truck that spent its life in Arizona, Flagstaff and Prescott, which typically means minimal rust issues. Under the hood, you're getting the reliable 318 V8 paired with an automatic transmission. And it's got some nice creature comforts like AC and cruise control, not always common in these early 80s trucks. The seller is upfront about the condition. They mention it's not perfect and has couple dings here and there, which is honestly pretty reasonable for a 41-year-old truck. But they emphasize it's super clean and all original, which is becoming increasingly rare for these old Dodges. What makes this interesting is that it's a solid 4x4 that's remained largely stock. No crazy modifications or questionable improvements that you often find on these old trucks. And the seller makes a good point. At $6,800, it's priced less than many new side-by-sides, and you're getting a full-size classic 4x4 truck with real road capability. These early 80s Dodge trucks are starting to gain more attention in the classic truck market, particularly original, well-maintained examples. The 318 V8 is known for its reliability, and parts are still readily available. 15. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1966 Chevy short bed fleet side that's popped up on Craigslist for $7,600. And I've got to be straight with you about this one. This is a California black plate truck, which is always a good starting point because it usually means less rust issues. Under the hood, you're getting the inline 6 paired with the classic 3-on-the-tree manual transmission, a combination that's about as simple and reliable as they come. The odometer shows 134,000 miles, which isn't shocking for a 57-year-old workhorse. Now let's be honest here, the seller is refreshingly upfront about this truck's condition. They've recently put in a new battery and fuel pump, and while it runs and drives well, they specifically mention it would need some attention before any long-distance traveling. That's the kind of honesty we like to see in a seller. They describe it as a solid California truck, but make it clear, it's not perfect. This suggests you're looking at a driver-quality classic rather than a showpiece. For those unfamiliar with these trucks, the fleet side was the smooth-sided body style, which many prefer over the step-side design. At $7,600, considering today's classic truck market, this could be a decent entry point into vintage truck ownership. These 66 Chevys are known for their straightforward mechanics, great parts availability, and strong community support. Plus, the inline 6 is actually a pretty bulletproof engine when maintained properly. 16. We're checking out a 1971 Chevy El Camino that's got some stories to tell, and I'm going to give you the straight scoop on this classic car-truck hybrid. Listed at $12,000 firm, this El Camino comes with the popular 350 V8 paired with a 350 automatic transmission combo. The seller's honest about the odometer having rolled over, so those 60,000 miles shown aren't telling the whole story. It's wearing black paint, and the seller's upfront about it needing some minor bodywork here and there, though they note you could just drive it as is. Let's talk positives. It's got long tube headers which should give it a nice sound, and the seller mentions it runs great. The interior is reportedly in good shape with no rips, which is actually pretty rare for these older vehicles. All the trim is present, another big plus for these classics. It's got good tires, good glass, and the brakes are working well. It's also currently registered with valid tags, which is always convenient. Now for the reality check, the seller rates it as fair condition, and there's no working AC, though it was factory equipped. This is pretty common for these older cars, but something to consider if you're in a hot climate. At $12,000 firm, You're looking at a driver-quality El Camino that needs some cosmetic attention but appears to be mechanically sound. These 71S are desirable because of their clean styling and strong drivetrain combination. The fact that all the trim is present and the interior is good makes this more interesting, as these parts can be expensive and hard to find. 17. We're looking at a pretty cool 1976 Ford F-250 Highboy that's popped up on Craigslist for $15,000. And let me tell you why this one's interesting. First off, this is a genuine highboy. Ford's factory-lifted 4x4 that has a serious following among truck enthusiasts. It's rocking a blue paint job, oversized tires, and a modified exhaust that probably gives it a nice rumble. The seller mentions it's got a 4-speed manual transmission, which is the preferred setup for many off-road enthusiasts. Now let's be real about the mileage. The odometer shows 9,700, but it's rolled over, so we're looking at 109,700+ miles. However, the seller's being upfront about several important points. It's rust-free with a straight body, and everything's original except for one fender and the missing stock stereo. What's particularly interesting is that this truck is described as roadworthy and street-safe as it sits, with all systems functional and a current smog certification, which can be a real challenge for modified vehicles of this age. The seller mentions it runs strong and drives great, which is promising. They're honest about it being an easy project to finish up, suggesting there's still some work to be done, despite listing the condition as excellent. It's been sitting in their shop for several years, which might explain why they're motivated to sell. 18. We're looking at something pretty special. A 1969 Chevy C10 that's about as honest and original as they come, listed at $10,500. What makes this truck particularly interesting is that it's a genuine one-owner vehicle with its original paint still intact. In today's world of over-restored and modified classics, finding a truck that stayed true to its original form is becoming increasingly rare. Under the hood, you've got the inline-6 paired with a 3-speed manual transmission, a simple, reliable combination that's known for its durability. The seller mentions it's got 98,000 original miles, and they've taken care of some important maintenance items. The brake system has been freshly serviced with new wheel cylinders, brakes, and a master cylinder. That's crucial safety work that won't need attention anytime soon. It's also equipped with power steering, which makes this old truck much more manageable in daily use. This is a long bed model, which, while maybe not as popular as short beds with customizers, actually offers more utility if you're planning to use it as a truck. The seller notes it has a straight body, which is important for these old Chevys, and runs good, simple, and to the point. At $10,500, considering it's a documented one-owner truck with original paint and straight body, the price seems fair in today's market. Sure, it's not a big block V8 short bed that everyone's looking for, but that's exactly what makes it special. It's a survivor that represents how these trucks actually came from the factory. 19. We're looking at an interesting 1967 Chevy C20 that's got some serious muscle under the hood, listed at $5,000. Let's get straight to the most exciting part. This long box C20 is packing a fresh 454 big block. That's a serious power upgrade from the original engine, and paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, this work truck's got some serious potential for fun. The seller mentions it runs great, which is always good to hear with a recent engine swap. The odometer shows 61,442 miles, and while the truck's painted yellow, what's really catching my attention is the trailing arm rear suspension setup, which the seller notes provides a nice ride. That's a significant upgrade from the original leaf springs these trucks came with. Now, let's be honest about what needs attention. The seller's upfront about it needing a new wood bed, which is a pretty straightforward fix if you're handy. They mention minimal rust, which is actually pretty good for a 67, as these old C20S were workhorses that often faced tough conditions. At $5,000, considering you're getting a fresh 454 engine, which alone could cost several $1,000s, this seems like a pretty solid deal in today's market. The C20 was the 3/4-ton version of Chevy's trucks, meaning it's built tougher than its C10 sibling. And with that big block under the hood, you've got a unique combination of heavy-duty capability and serious power. 20. We're looking at a seriously interesting 1976 Chevy C20 camper special. That's definitely not your average work truck anymore. Let me break down this beast for you. Listed at $16,000, what we've got here is essentially a hot rod disguised as a pickup truck. The star of the show is a fresh 406 Dart motor built by Jerry Peckham in Grants Pass, Oregon, pushing out over 500 horsepower. This isn't some thrown-together build either. We're talking serious components like AFR aluminum heads, comp cam, Magnum rollers, and a modern Edelbrock Pro Flow 4 computerized EFI system. The attention to detail continues with ARP bolts throughout, and a slick CVF single-belt aluminum serpentine system. The transmission is equally impressive, a fresh turbo 403-speed automatic with a 2,800 pounds torque converter from Mad Dog in Georgia. Both the engine and trans have less than 500 miles on them, so they're basically just broken in. Now let's be honest about the truck itself. It's got some rust in the bed and a small dent on the passenger side. However, the seller has addressed a lot of body components with new front fenders, wheel wells, front inner body panel, grille, lights, and brackets. They've also painted the engine compartment and front of the truck. The cooling system is well thought out with a new aluminum 4-core radiator with dual fans, and they've installed a dual battery setup, which is smart with all that power. At $16,000, you need to look at this as basically buying a professional-built performance engine and transmission package that happens to come with a truck around it. The seller's right. The drivetrain alone is worth the asking price when you add up all the high-end components.